not to say that these are names number 15 and 16. It depends which order you want to put them in, what list you want to make. We are not insisting that these are the actual numbers. We're only, for our purposes, in listing and working our way through 99 of Allah's names, this in our list is 15 and 16. So we began to look at an argument which Allah presents. We said, knowing Allah is the Creator, Al-Khallaq, it should give us a sense of empowerment to accept or to know that the belief in a Creator is a logical and reasonable belief. Because those who deny God's creation, that God's existence, and that the creation is from God, say it's just an accident, they basically argue that belief in God is irrational. It is something illogical. It's blind faith, as they call it. Whereas their belief is that what they believe is logical, that this is all a big accident, and that's why we're here. However, Allah presents a logical argument for them. In Surah At-Tur, verses 35 and 36, He asked them, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ? Were they created from nothing or by nothing? They have to say no. If nothing was there, how could we come into existence? The other option, أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ? Or did they create themselves? Again, we said, that's not logical. That's not logical. Because they would have to have not existed to then create themselves. And Allah goes on to say, أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ? Not only did they create themselves, but they also created the heavens and the earth. Right? بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Indeed, they are uncertain. Even if they wanted to make a claim for themselves, yeah, we created ourselves, but the heavens and the earth, problematic. It's too much. But even to say that we created ourselves is nonsense. It's illogical. Because, as I said, you have to have not existed so that you could create yourself to come into existence. And if you are not existing, you can't do any creating. So, those two options are finished. Allah, in this verse, does not mention the third option. That is, somebody created you. Somebody had to create you. He just leaves it there for the person with a mind to think, to grasp it. He only gives the two options, which could not be what else is left, but that somebody created you. That's the logic for the belief in God. There has to be a creator. So this is the argument presented by the Quran, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. There are some people who say, well, okay, there was a creator and he created me, but he was created by somebody else. And that somebody else was created by somebody else. And so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. Going back, reality is that if you're going to go back infinitely, because that's what you're saying now, each creator had a creator, then that is like saying there was no creation. The very fact that we exist is proof that there had to be one creator. Because if each creator had a creator, you're going back infinitely, you're going back to infinity, means that it would take an infinite amount of time to get to where we are now. Means it would not get here. The very fact that we exist here right now is proof that there was one creator. Actually, this is the argument used by Aristotle. Aristotle and Plato, they logically proved the existence of God. And according to Western thought, the originators of logic, the people who laid down the rules for logic, were the ancient Greeks. And here we have the logicians themselves, using their minds, their brains, their reason, to come to the conclusion that there must be a God. So that in itself is something worth thinking for those people who like to claim that those who believe in God are doing it out of emotion, out of blind faith. No. It is quite reasonable and logical to believe in God. The second point, which should be considered from the name Al-Khaleq and Al-Khallaq, is that whatever exists in creation is by the will and the wish of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As He said in Surah Al-Qasas, verse 68, وَرَبُّكَ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَخْتَارُ. Your Lord creates whatever He wishes and chooses. Whatever is considered to be creation, whatever exists, is by His wish and His choice. So it means then that everything which exists is by the choice and the will and the wish of Allah. Now, that is a basic part of belief in God. There are those who say, well, if your God is all-powerful, He is Al-Aziz, we believe that, and you believe Him to be good, right? Yes, we believe God to be good. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah is tayyib, He's good, and He loves, وَيُحِبُّ الطَّيِّبَةِ, and He loves good. So Allah is good. Allah is not an evil God, He's a good God. That's our belief. So they said, okay, if He's all-powerful and He's good, where did the evil come from? For them, as they argue, the very existence of evil is proof that there is no God. There couldn't be a God if He's good, unless you have an evil God. And for some people who are stuck with this idea, you have the people like the Zoroastrians of Persia. Their solution to this problem was to have a God of good, Ahura Mazda, and a God of evil, Angra Mainyu. So that way it was solved. God is good. Whatever comes from Him is good. And there's this other God, who's like really Satan elevated to the status of being able to create like God. That's what they've done. And the evil comes from this individual. So that way evil is not attributed to God. But from the Muslim perspective, that's not the case. Our belief is that God created everything. Whether it is good or whether it is what we perceive to be evil. Because there are many things which are good, which under certain other circumstances can become evil. Rain, for example. Rain is a good thing. Causes the crops to grow and everything. But sometimes rain comes and it floods and people die. So it depends on the perspective one is looking at it from. It may be a good thing or it may be an evil thing. Reality is that Allah created nothing which was 100% evil. This is a point I made on an earlier program. Allah created nothing which is 100% evil. Because if that were the case, then you're talking about an evil God. He created something evil with an evil intent. That's an evil God. We do things like that. We have evil intents and we try to implement those evil intents as evil acts. That in that small parameter is pure evil. relative to ourselves, that's pure evil. We thought evil and we did evil. But relative to Allah, even that evil which we thought and did, if we did it, it means He allowed us to do it, then there must be some good for which He permitted us to do this evil. No, we don't, justify our evil by saying, well, Allah let me do the evil, so there must be some good, so that my evil is a good thing. No. Evil is evil still. Allah has prohibited this, and He has warned us of punishment for the evil. So it's not something that He's commanded, but He has permitted us to choose between good and evil. And if we weren't able to do evil, then the choice would be meaningless. So He permits us to choose it and to do it. Sometimes. If He sees in our doing it a purely evil result, that there's no good that's going to come out of it, then He doesn't permit it. If there is some good along the line, some way, what we call the silver lining of the cloud, then He permits it. He allows it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever evil that exists in the world is by His permission, and He is the one who takes out of what we may conceive to be evil, good. He is capable and able to do that. And that's why He would permit it. The last point that I would like to mention before we close is that the belief in Allah as the Creator also should offer us some sense of confidence in the fact that Allah, whatever human beings do, they will not be able to achieve what Allah has done with regards to creation. Science is moving at a very fast pace now. The scientists are being promoted almost like gods in this world. They're able to do this, they're able to do that. Seems like there's nothing they're not going to be able to do. But reflecting on this name of Allah brings us back down to earth to know that Allah is the only true Creator in this world. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of the program. We hope to see you in our coming segments of In the Names of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When you are weak and the road seems